The simulation chamber doors hissed open, and Maya Chen stepped into a world designed to kill her. Overhead lights flickered across a jungle terrain that stretched impossibly far for an enclosed space. Humidity hit her face like a wet towel. Somewhere in the canopy above, something screeched. The sound echoed through her helmet, making her jaw clench. "Beginning assessment in 30 seconds, announced the automated voice. It spoke in galactic standard, a language that still felt clumsy in her mouth after 6 months at the Viridian Combat Academy. Maya checked her weapon. The plasma rifle hummed to life, its charge indicator glowing a steady blue. Standard issue. Nothing fancy. She had requested basic equipment for this test, and the Academy had granted her wish without question. That should have been her first warning. Behind her, the observation deck lit up. Through the reinforced glass, she could see them watching. Dozens of alien cadets pressed against the barrier, their faces a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Zinthari with their 4 arms crossed in judgment. Krell with their scaled hides gleaming under the artificial light. Even a few Vorith, those floating jellyfish-like beings who considered themselves the intellectuals of the galaxy. And right in the center, Commander Thex, the Zinthari instructor who had made Maya's life absolute hell since her arrival. 10 seconds, the voice announced. Maya rolled her shoulders, feeling the weight of the tactical vest. Human design, human manufacturing, one of the few things from Earth she was allowed to keep when the Galactic Council had accepted her species into their military exchange program. She was the first human to attend the academy, the only one, a test case to see if these primitive Death Worlders could handle advanced combat training. 5 seconds. Her heart rate elevated. She felt it in her chest, that familiar drumbeat that came before action. Some of the alien cadets had sensors that could detect biological responses. They were probably reading her vitals right now, noting the increased pulse, the elevated adrenaline. Let them watch. Begin. The jungle erupted. Maya dove left as plasma fire tore through the space where she had been standing. The shot came from her 3 o'clock, hidden in the dense foliage. She rolled behind a massive tree trunk, bark exploding as another blast hit above her head. Contact, she whispered into her comm, following protocol even though she knew no one would respond. This was a solo assessment. No backup, no support, just her against whatever the simulation threw at her. Something moved in her peripheral vision. She spun, rifle up, and fired 3 quick bursts. The holographic enemy shimmered and collapsed. 1 down. Unknown number remaining. Your form is acceptable. Thex's voice boomed through the speakers, audible even over the jungle sound. For a species that only discovered faster than light travel 15 years ago, you show surprising competence. Maya ignored the backhanded compliment. She moved through the underbrush, keeping low, scanning for threats. The simulation was adapting to her movements. She could feel it. The AI was learning. Good. A branch snapped behind her. She whirled and fired, but nothing was there. Misdirection. Classic tactic. She kept her rifle trained on the spot while her eyes searched everywhere else. There, in the canopy, 3 shapes moving through the trees with unnatural grace. She adjusted her aim and fired upward. 2 of the shapes fell. The third launched itself directly at her, claws extended, mouth open in a silent roar. Maya dropped her rifle and drew the combat knife from her thigh holster in one fluid motion. The simulated creature was on her in a heart. She sidestepped, letting its momentum carry it past, and drove the blade into what passed for its spine. It dissolved into pixels. In the observation deck, a few alien cadets shifted uncomfortably. Adequate, Thex said, his tone suggesting anything but approval. Continue. Maya retrieved her rifle and pushed deeper into the simulation. Sweat dripped down her back. The humidity was oppressive, designed to challenge species from a dozen different worlds. For her, though, it was nothing. Earth had jungles. Earth had humidity. Earth had evolved its apex predators in conditions that made most aliens shudder. 10 minutes into the assessment, she realized something was wrong. The difficulty was increasing too rapidly. Standard combat simulations followed a curve. Gradual escalation. Manageable challenges that tested skill without overwhelming the participant. This was different. Enemies poured from every direction. Plasma fire turned the jungle into a light show. Maya moved like water, flowing between cover points, returning fire with precision that came from instinct rather than training. Her muscles screamed, her lungs burned, but she kept moving, because stopping meant failing, and failure meant giving Thex exactly what he wanted. Interesting. The commander's voice dripped with false curiosity. The human continues. I had projected failure by now. Through the chaos, Maya caught a glimpse of the observation deck. The alien cadets were no longer pressed against the glass in curiosity. They had backed away. Some looked concerned. Others wore expressions she could not quite read. But Thex was smiling. All four of his hands were clasped together in what his species considered a gesture of satisfaction. Maya felt ice slide down her spine despite the heat. This was not a standard assessment. She dove behind a boulder as an explosion tore through the space she had just occupied. The blast wave hit her like a physical wall, slamming her against stone. Her helmet cracked. Warning lights flashed across her visor display. The simulation parameters appear to be malfunctioning, Thex announced, his tone utterly unconvincing. How unfortunate. Maya's ears were ringing. Blood trickled down her temple where a piece of shrapnel had found skin. She forced herself to focus, forced herself to think. They were trying to kill her, or at least hurt her badly enough that she would wash out of the program. Thex had manipulated the simulation, probably from the start. This entire assessment was a setup. She should have been angry, furious. Instead, she felt something cold and calculating settle over her like a blanket. Fine. If they wanted to see what a human could do when pushed to the edge, she would show them. Maya stood up from behind the boulder and sprinted directly toward the heaviest concentration of enemy fire. Plasma bolts screamed past her head. One grazed her shoulder, burning through armor and flesh. She did not slow down. She hit the ground in a slide, passing under a hovering drone enemy. As she slid beneath it, she fired straight up. The drone exploded. She used the explosion as cover, rolling to her feet and continuing her charge. 3 more enemies ahead. She emptied her rifle's magazine into them without breaking stride. They fell. She did not stop to confirm kills. Her tactical display showed a structure ahead, some kind of command post, probably the objective of this twisted assessment. If she could reach it, if she could complete the mission despite everything they had thrown at her, she would prove them all wrong. Maya burst through the entrance, rifle up, ready for anything. The room was empty. Not empty. In the center of the space sat a single terminal. Its screen glowed with galactic standard text. She approached cautiously. Every instinct screamed trap, but curiosity and something else, something defiant, pushed her forward. The text on the screen was simple. Assessment complete. Exit through the rear door. Maya stared at the words. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline dump. Her shoulder throbbed where the plasma had burned her. Her helmet's cracked visor distorted her vision. This was it. After everything, they were just going to let her walk out. She turned toward the rear door. It stood open, showing a plain corridor that led back to the academy proper. Something was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Maya's eyes drifted back to the terminal. She moved closer, ignoring the X. Her fingers flew over the interface, accessing functions that cadets were not supposed to know existed. But Maya had spent 6 months being underestimated. 6 months watching, learning, preparing. The terminal unlocked under her commands. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Simulation parameters, difficulty setting, administrative access logs. Her breath caught in her throat. The simulation had not malfunctioned. X had not just increased the difficulty, he had done something far worse. According to the logs, this simulation chamber had been reprogrammed 3 days ago. The safety protocols had been disabled, not reduced, not adjusted, completely removed. The plasma fire had been real, the explosions had been real, the enemies had been hard light holograms. Yes, but their weapons had been very, very real. X had tried to actually kill her. Maya's hands clenched into fists, her jaw set. She looked up at the cameras she knew were watching her every move. And she smiled, because now she had proof. Now she had evidence that would end Thex's career, get him court-martialed, possibly imprisoned. The Galactic Council took attempted murder of exchange cadets seriously. It was a violation of about 40 different treaties. She reached for her comm to call for security. That was when the terminal screen changed. New text appeared, and with it Maya's entire world tilted. Maya Chen, human, classified project Desedishange, Hammerfall. Congratulations on passing your true assessment. Exit through the rear door. Do not speak of what you have discovered. Your real training begins now. This message will delete in 5 seconds. The screen went dark. Maya stood frozen. Her mind raced through implications, possibilities, impossibilities. Project Hammerfall, true assessment, real training. The rear door was still open. The corridor beyond was empty. She looked back at the terminal one more time. Its screen showed only the standard Academy interface now. No evidence of the message. No trace of the classified information. No proof of anything. Maya's training kicked in. She moved toward the door, rifle held at ready position. Each step felt like walking through water. Her thoughts were chaos. Nothing made sense. Everything made sense. Vex trying to kill her. The simulation's impossible difficulty. The mysterious message. It all connected, but she could not see the shape of it yet. She emerged from the corridor into the Academy's main hallway. Cadets moved past her, heading to classes, barely giving her a second glance. Her torn uniform and bleeding shoulder did not seem to register to them, or they had been told to ignore it. Maya made her way to the medical bay on autopilot. Her mind was miles away. A medic, a Vorath with tentacles that worked with surprising gentleness, tended to her injuries without comment. No questions about what had happened, no concern about the severity of her wounds, because they already knew, they had to know. 30 minutes later, clean and bandaged, Maya returned to her quarters. The small room was exactly as she had left it. Bed made with military precision, desk organized, personal items minimal. On her desk sat a datapad that had not been there when she left for the assessment. Maya picked it up with hands that had finally stopped shaking. The screen activated at her touch. A single file was loaded. No identification, no sender information. She opened it. Inside was a dossier. Not on her, on Earth, on humanity, but it was information she had never seen before. Classified documents from the Galactic Council. Survey reports from the first contact ships that had visited her homeworld, and assessments, dozens of them, all marked with the highest security clearance, all saying the same thing in different ways. Humanity was dangerous, not because humans were physically superior, not because they had advanced technology, but because they were adaptable in ways that terrified the rest of the galaxy. The reports detailed how humans could survive in environments that killed most species, how they could function with injuries that would incapacitate aliens, how their capacity for violence was matched only by their capacity for compassion, making them unpredictable and impossible to model accurately. And at the bottom of the dossier, in bold text, was a single statement: Project Hammer Fall Objective: identify and recruit humans capable of operating in scenarios where conventional galactic forces cannot. Subject Maya Chen has been selected for Phase 2 training. She is not aware that Phase 1 was her entire experience at the Viridian Combat Academy. Maya sat down slowly on her bed. The datapad fell from her hands. Phase 1. Her entire experience. 6 months of being belittled, challenged, pushed to her limits. All of it had been a test. All of it had been planned. Thix was not a sadistic instructor. He was an evaluator. The humiliation had been intentional. The impossible standards had been by design. They had been breaking her down to see if she would break or bend. And today's simulation, the attempt on her life that had been the final exam, a knock on her door made her jump. She stood, reaching instinctively for a weapon that was not there. "Come in," she called, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The door opened. Commander Thex stepped through. All 4 of his hands were relaxed at his sides. His expression was neutral, unreadable. "Cadet Chen," he said formally, "you have been reassigned. Gather your essentials. A transport leaves in 1 hour. Reassigned where?" Maya asked. Thex's expression shifted. It might have been respect. It might have been pity. "Somewhere your talents will be properly utilized," he said. "Somewhere the real monsters are." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it is worth," he added, "you exceeded every expectation. Your species is extraordinary. We are fortunate you chose to join us rather than conquer us." The door closed behind him. Maya stood alone in her quarters, surrounded by the ruins of everything she thought she knew. The humiliation had not been real, but what came next would be. The transport ship was nothing like the sleek Academy vessels Maya had seen during her time at Viridian. This was a military craft, all function, zero aesthetic. The hull was scarred from combat, weapon systems bristled from every angle, and the crew, when she finally saw them, moved with the efficiency of soldiers who had seen actual war. Maya strapped into a jump seat in the cargo hold. Around her sat 6 other beings. None of them were cadets. These were operators, veterans. Their equipment was personalized, modified, battle-tested. They spoke little, and when they did, it was in the clipped shorthand of people who had bled together. She was the youngest by at least a decade. The only one who had never seen real combat. The only human. First deployment? A voice asked from her left. Maya turned. The speaker was Krell, her scales a deep blue that indicated high caste in her species. Her eyes, though, held something that transcended rank. Experience. Loss. Understanding. Is it that obvious? Maya replied. The Krell's mouth parts shifted in what might have been a smile. You still have hope in your eyes. Give it time. We will burn that out of you soon enough. It should have sounded cruel. Instead, it was just honest. The transport jumped to faster-than-light speed. Maya's stomach did its usual flip. Human biology was still adapting to FTL travel. The nausea would pass in a few minutes. It always. Where are we going? Maya asked. No one answered. The Krellologist tapped the side of her head, indicating classified information. Need to know basis. Maya was not yet cleared, so she sat, and she waited, and she thought about everything that had led to this moment. The dossier had revealed more than just Project Hammerfall. It had shown her the truth about First Contact, about how the Galactic Council had approached Earth not as equals but as potential weapons. Humanity had been evaluated, categorized, and carefully integrated into the wider galaxy not because of altruism, but because keeping humans contained on one planet had been deemed more dangerous than bringing them into the fold. Better to have the Deathworlders inside the tent than outside it. Maya should have been angry, betrayed, used, but she understood. In their position, she would have done the same thing. The transport dropped out of FTL 6 hours later. Through the small viewport, Maya saw a planet. It was beautiful. Blues, and greens, and whites. Clouds swirling in patterns that spoke of thriving atmosphere. It was also burning. Cities were marked by columns of smoke rising into space. Explosions bloomed across the surface like deadly flowers, and in orbit debris from destroyed ships created a graveyard around the world. Welcome to Taros Prime, the Krell said quietly. 3 days ago, it had a population of 2 billion. Now it has considerably fewer. Maya felt her chest tighten. What happened? The Skrull happened. The name meant nothing to Maya. She had never encountered that species in Academy databases. Never heard them mentioned in briefings. The Krella noticed her confusion. Of course you have not heard of them. The Council keeps their existence classified. The Skrella do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They arrive, they consume, and they move on. Think of them as locusts. Biological machines designed for only one purpose, stripping worlds clean. How do you fight something like that? Maya asked. The veteran's eyes locked on hers. With the only thing they have not evolved to counter, death world brutality. The transport began its descent. The ride was rough. Atmospheric turbulence mixed with what Maya suspected was incoming fire. She gripped her harness as the ship bucked and rolled. They landed hard in what used to be a city center. Now it was a fortified position. Walls made from rubble. Defensive positions carved into collapsed buildings. Soldiers from a dozen species moved with the desperate efficiency of beings fighting for survival. The cargo ramp dropped. Heat and smoke and the smell of death rolled in. Move out, ordered a voice. The team leader, a Zenthari with scars that told stories Maya could not yet read.
Chen, with me.
The rest of you know your assignments. The team scattered. Maya followed the Zenthari through the chaos. Around them soldiers fought and died. Plasma fire lit the smoke-filled air. Explosions turned buildings into rubble. And everywhere she saw them. The Skrull. They were nothing like the species Maya had encountered at the Academy. These were nightmares given flesh. Insectoid bodies the size of tanks. Mandibles that could shear through armor. Eyes that tracked movement with predatory focus. And there were thousands of them. Your briefing is simple, the Zenthari said as they reached a command bunker. The Skrull consume biomass. They are attracted to population centers. Standard evacuation protocols have failed because there is nowhere to evacuate to. They have overrun every spaceport, every escape route. 2 billion beings are trapped on this planet with an enemy that wants to eat them. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed the city. Red markers indicated Skrull positions. They formed a tightening noose around a single blue marker in the city's heart. That is the last civilian shelter. Approximately 50,000 beings, mostly children, We need to hold that position until reinforcements arrive. When will reinforcements arrive? Maya asked. The Zenthary's expression answered before his words did. If we are very lucky, and if the Council sends everything they have, maybe 4 days. Maya looked at the display, at the red markers that outnumbered the blue by hundreds to 1. 4 days was impossible. Everyone in this bunker knew it. So this is a suicide mission, she said flatly. No, Cadetchen, this is where we discover if your species deserves the fear they inspire. He handed her a rifle. It was human design, kinetic projectiles instead of plasma, crude by galactic standards, devastating by any measure. The Skrell have adapted to energy weapons. Their carapaces disperse plasma with high efficiency. But kinetic rounds, he tapped the rifle. These still work. Your species never abandoned ballistic weapons. The Council thought it was primitive. Now we understand it was wisdom. Maya checked the weapon, loaded, charged, ready. What is your name? She asked the Zenthari. Commander Drell. I trained under Thex. He sent his best to watch your first real test. This is another evaluation? Maya felt anger rising. No, Drell's voice was gentle. This is war. People will die today, probably including me. Possibly including you. But those 50,000 civilians might live. That is all that matters now. He was right. Maya knew he was right. The anger drained away, replaced by something colder. Focus. What do you need me to do? Drell's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. The Skrell nest in underground tunnels. They are expanding them beneath the city, using the bodies of the fallen as nutrients. We believe their queen is somewhere in that network. Kill her, and the swarm loses cohesion. They become disorganized, vulnerable. You want me to go into their tunnels, into their nest, and kill their queen. I want you to do what no other species can. I want you to hunt in the dark in confined spaces, surrounded by enemies, and survive, because humans evolved doing exactly that. Maya felt something shift inside her. The academy had been preparation. The simulation had been evaluation. But this, standing in a burning city with a rifle in her hands and impossible odds, this was purpose. I need a team, she said. No, you need to move fast and quiet. A team would slow you down. This is a solo operation. That is insane. Yes, Drell agreed. That is why we are sending a human. He pointed to an entrance, a hole blown in the street leading down into darkness. That tunnel connects to their network. I can give you a tactical map, but it will be incomplete. The Skrell are constantly expanding. You will have to navigate on instinct. Maya looked at the hole, at the darkness beyond. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was suicide. One person against an entire hive, impossible odds. But she thought about the 50,000 civilians. The children, the families huddled in that shelter praying for rescue that might never come. She thought about what the dossier had said, about human adaptability, about death world brutality, and she smiled. Not from joy, from acceptance. Give me the map, she said, and send someone to the shelter. Tell them to hold for 4 hours. That is how long this will take. Drell studied her. You cannot possibly know that. No, Maya agreed, but they need hope, so give it to them. She walked toward the tunnel entrance. Behind her, she heard Drell speaking rapidly into his comm, issuing orders, repositioning troops, preparing for what came next. Maya descended into darkness. The tunnels were worse than she had imagined. Walls made from compressed biomass. The dead recycled into building material. The smell was overwhelming. But Maya forced herself to breathe through it, forced herself to move forward. Her rifle's tactical light cut through the gloom. The map Drell had provided showed a route, but he had been right. The tunnels were changing. New passages. Collapsed sections. She was navigating partially blind. Movement ahead. Maya dropped to one knee. Rifle up. 3 Skrell emerged from a side tunnel. Workers, smaller than the warriors she had seen on the surface, but still deadly. She fired. 3 shots. 3 kills. The kinetic rounds punched through carapace like it was paper. The bodies fell. Maya moved past them without stopping. The tunnels went deeper. The air grew thick. Her tactical display showed she was beneath the city proper now. In the ancient foundations, in spaces that had been buried for centuries before the Skrell excavated them, she came to a junction. 5 tunnels branching off in different directions. No way to know which led to the queen. Maya closed her eyes, listened, let her instincts, millions of years of evolution guide her. There, the faintest vibration, coming from the leftmost tunnel, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. She followed it. The tunnel opened into a chamber. Vast, impossible, the walls pulsed with bioluminescent growth, and in the center, surrounded by hundreds of warriors, sat the queen. She was massive, the size of a building, her body bloated with eggs that would spawn the next generation of Skrell. Her mandibles clicked in patterns that Maya realized was communication. The queen was giving orders, and every warrior in the chamber was staring at Maya. She had walked into the heart of the nest. Alone, surrounded by enemies that numbered in the hundreds, Maya raised her rifle. "Come on then," she said quietly. "Let me show you why Earth is called a death world." The warriors charged. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for years. How a single human held a position against impossible odds. How kinetic weapons designed centuries ago proved superior to energy systems in close quarters. How human endurance and refusal to quit turned certain death into merely improbable survival. Maya fired until her rifle overheated. Then she drew her sidearm. When that emptied, she used her knife. When the knife broke, she used her hands, and she kept moving. Always toward the queen, always forward. Skrell fell around her. Their warriors were designed for open combat, for overwhelming numbers. They were not prepared for close-quarters brutality, for a predator that refused to stop. Maya reached the queen. The massive creature tried to rear back, tried to strike, but she was too large, too slow, evolved for breeding, not fighting. Maya drove her broken knife into the queen's brain. The effect was immediate. The warriors stopped, their coordination shattered. They began attacking each other, their hive mind broken without the queen's guidance. Maya collapsed. Her body was a mass of cuts and bruises and burns. Every breath was agony. But she was alive. "Drell," she gasped into her comm. "Queen is down. Repeat, queen is down." Static. Then, confirmed. "Skrell forces are withdrawing from the shelter." "You did it, Chen. You actually did it." Maya laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. But she laughed anyway. "Told you 4 hours," she managed. "Extraction took 3 hours. By the time they pulled her from the tunnels, the Skrella had abandoned the city entirely. The civilian shelter was secure. Reinforcements were arriving. 50,000 beings would live because Maya Chen had walked into darkness and refused to die. Drell found her in the medical bay. Her injuries would heal. Accelerated human metabolism already working on repairs. "The council is calling you a hero," he said. "I am not a hero," Maya replied. "I just did what needed to be done. That is what makes you a hero." Drell paused. "It is also what makes you dangerous. Vex was right about your species. You do not quit. You do not surrender. You simply adapt and survive. The galaxy does not know what to do with that." Maya closed her eyes. Exhaustion was pulling her under. But before sleep took her, she had one question. Was any of this real? The academy? The humiliation? Or was it all manipulation? Drell was quiet for a long moment. The humiliation was real. Athex genuinely believed humans were inferior. But that belief made you stronger. It gave you something to prove, and in proving it, you became exactly what we needed. "So I should thank him for being a bigot." "No, you should thank yourself for refusing to let his bigotry define you." Maya drifted into sleep. Her last thought was of Earth, of home, of a species that had clawed its way up from caves and savanna to reach the stars. They had tried to humiliate her, tried to break her, tried to make her fail. And in failing to break her, they had unleashed something the galaxy was not prepared for. Humanity was not going to conquer the stars. They were going to save them, one death worlder at a time.